Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rise of the Phoenix Coach. I'm Amy Tostenson, a nurse, trauma-informed life coach, and someone who's walked through the fire and chose to rise. Before we begin, a quick note. This podcast includes real, unfiltered conversations about trauma, addiction, mental health, and recovery. Some topics may feel intense or triggering, so please listen with care. Take breaks as needed, and always honor where you are in your own journey. This space is not about perfection. It's about truth. It's about healing. It's about rising again and again, and sometimes again. And if you've ever felt broken, lost, or stuck in survival mode, you're not alone, and you're not beyond repair. Here we turn pain into power, and we rewrite old stories, and we reclaim the parts of ourselves we were never meant to lose. This is Rise of the Phoenix Coach. So let's begin. Today we are starting part 2 of episode 6 in season 1 with Andrea Thorefson, who is the author of Living is Easy with Eyes Closed, a meditation book written especially for people who struggle with traditional meditation, including those with busy minds, ADHD, or aphantasia. As someone with global sensory aphantasia herself, Andrea brings a grounded, compassionate approach to meditation, healing, and spiritual growth. Her work explores the places where stillness, self-discovery, forgiveness, and everyday life meet. Through her writing on Substack, her personal essays, and her book, Andrea shares openly about her own healing journey, including grief, resilience, spiritual awakening, and learning to release resentment without pretending the pain never happened. Andrea's message is simple but powerful. Healing does not have to look perfect. Meditation does not require an empty mind. And forgiveness is not about excusing the harm. It's about finding freedom within ourselves. She lives in Washington State with her family and writes about meditation, spirituality, neurodiversity, creativity, and the beautiful, very human process of becoming more fully ourselves. So welcome, Andrea, to part 2. I'm excited to be here with you again today.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
Yeah.
Really quick. Just a funny thing. I actually go by Andrea. However, half my family calls me Andrea and half my family calls me Andrea. So I do respond to both.
Oh, that's funny. Thank you. I've always just called you Andrea.
Yeah. And I've never corrected you before, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I should say something.
Well, I'm glad to know. What is your preference? Is it Andrea?
It's Andrea.
Okay.
I went by Andrea until I was probably 16, and my best friend at the time started calling me Andrea, and I was like, you know what? I like that better. And my mom was like, well, it's about time because that was what your name was supposed to be.
Oh,
It was my dad. It was my dad. My mom and dad argued over the pronunciation, and my dad liked Andrea. She liked Andrea.
Oh, that's funny. Well, hey, then it all worked out. It all worked out. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I thought we would get back together today and do part 2 because I know in last week's episode, we did talk a lot about our stories. And so I wanted to kind of have this opportunity to talk a little bit more about the healing aspects, how we healed, what that kind of looked like for people, so people can kind of see that part as well. I know it's good to have resources and be able to have that relatability with other people and to know that other people have been there and understand what you're going through. But I thought it would be a good chance to also talk about the good things we did for ourselves to help us get to where we are today.
I agree. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, I know we talked a little bit last week about, our using drugs and alcohol. Well, me, it was alcohol. I know you did it partake in that quite so much. You were more into the different drugs.
Mhm.
But what was the point what did that look like for you when you decided, I gotta quit? This is too much. Enough is enough. What did that look like for you?
You know, it's funny that you bring that up because I was thinking back to that not too long ago, and I really don't have a good answer for that. I really can't pinpoint, this was the reason why I decided to stop. It was just sort of, I think that I got to the point where I don't know, maybe it was my higher self that was like, you know what, you've got to, if you don't quit now, you're going to go down that road that you don't want to go down. You're going to follow your mom. You're going to follow your alcoholic dad. You're going to follow that path.
Yeah.
And because I just remember, I mean, I even remember where I was. I was in my little tiny studio apartment on Capitol Hill by myself. And it was, the weekend was coming up and I was, usually would go hang out with my friends and do our drugs. But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna this weekend. I just don't feel like it. And I thought, no, I'm done. I'm just done. And I
Yeah.
was.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that goes to show that that can look so different for everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody has, they talk about having a bottom.
Mhm.
And, it can be that. It can be the extreme opposite. I've been homeless before. Um I've had it with my mental health so bad that I've wanted to die. Um, so that can look so different for anybody.
Well, now that you bring that up, I mean, that could have been a part of it because I did have some severe mental health issues at
Mhm.
the same time, to the point where I even committed myself for a while because
Okay.
I would have killed myself if I had not. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother story. And it didn't
Yeah.
coincide exactly with the time when I, quit
Mhm.
using, but it was sort of simultaneously happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was actually clean and sober for a few months before, but that's the thing is, we get clean and sober, and then all these real feelings come back that we suppressed with
Yes.
drugs and alcohol for so long. That's why that comes in and happens sometimes, I think.
Yeah. And if I looked back at it, if I really looked back on it, I'd probably say, oh, yeah, it was after I quit using that happened. It's very,
Yeah. Because I went to treatment. I ended up going to treatment for 45 days, and it was because my depression was so bad. I did an inpatient residential that was for co-occurring for the mental health aspect because I have a long history with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And then, but for the co-occurring for that, plus the substance abuse, the drinking, the drugging, and all of that. Because I actually, I was after being sober I was clean and sober for a few months at least. Let me think. Yeah, about 3 months. Um, and I got to the point where I was like, I needed something. I needed some relief. So I ended up going out and drinking and drugging that night just to get through the night with the intent of calling around. I had a therapy. I just happened to have a therapy appointment the next day. And I was going to be honest with her with where I was and how I felt, and that I knew I needed to get into some kind of treatment because I wasn't going to maintain my stability and not, you know, off myself. I was that depressed. I felt I had nothing to live for at that point. But at that point, I had lost, it was very much situational depression. I'd lost everyone in my life that I'd cared about except for my mom and my best friend at that point in my life. I had been homeless. I was working a job that I absolutely hated for practically minimum wage. I was living in an Oxford house, and I butted heads with the president of the house because we were both strong-willed, strong-minded women, and
yeah.
I saw she was manipulative with a lot of the other girls, and I didn't like it. So we butted heads a lot. I was just miserable. I hated my life, you know, and yeah, I got to that point to where I wanted to die. And so, it is important that we reach out for help because
Yeah.
sometimes it is hard. It can be very hard. Um, and before the real healing can happen, I think with any kind of trauma, we have to be sober and clean because otherwise we're not going to fully process. I mean, and I'm talking about someone who has a problem with it. If you're a normie and can have a few drinks and put it down and live your life and it not affect you the way it does some people, my hat's off to you.
Right.
No, I know I was not one who was able to do that. Um, I used it to cope. I used it to
Yeah.
cope.
I think a lot of us do. I know I did. That's, yeah. Self-medicating.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing
Hmm.
at all. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, after treatment, I went to it was called transitional living. The treatment center I went to, it was a 45-day residential program. And then they had attached a transitional living program, which was just like a halfway house, where it had like some programs as far as groups and things like that you still did. I got a part-time job waiting tables. But that was where I think my healing started, where I recognized and knew I needed to do the deep work that I've been avoiding for years and years and years. I'd been in and out of therapy my whole life, but it didn't, nothing ever stuck. Nothing was lasting that I did. Um,
Same with me. In and
mhm,
out of all sorts of different therapy. Was court ordered as, when I was a child. It was court ordered. I had to go to Al-Anon meetings, one-on-one therapy. Later, after my husband died, it was grief therapy,
mhm,
for depression, for anxiety. And therapy, I'm not saying that therapy doesn't help. Please don't get me wrong on that. I'm definitely not saying that. But
yeah,
for me, it's not what ultimately helped.
yeah. I know for me, there was a lot of different parts that started helping that I was doing that helped all together collectively.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with our nervous system being so dysregulated.
Hmm.
That some of the things we started doing is what helped to calm our bodies down because the trauma doesn't just live in our mind. It's not a memory problem. It lives in the body. It lives in the body. Um, do you want to talk about like some of the things that you did that really helped you with your healing? Um,
Yeah, yeah, we could do, yeah. It's funny, my healing, I think I had started it. So after my husband died, that's when I really sort of gave up. And even
mhm,
more so than I had in the past. I was done. I wanted out of this life. But I had three little boys, so I couldn't
mhm,
do that. I had to take care of them. I ended up becoming on autopilot. I, went through the day, I did the all the motions that I needed to. I made the dinners, whatever. But any chance I I escaped, whether it was through reading, video games, sleeping. I slept a lot. I just escaped and I, just wanted out. And I lived that way for a very long time. And during that time, what I didn't realize what was happening is I became resentful to myself. And I was also carrying a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, because my boys had already lost their father and they'd all but lost me. Yes, I was there physically, but I was not the mother that they needed. Definitely not the mother they needed. So I didn't realize I was racking up all this guilt, all this shame. Then I reconnected with my high school boyfriend, who's my husband now. And at the time, I was on a ton of antidepressants, a ton of anti-anxieties. I had also been diagnosed with a myriad of different physical, problems. I was on social security disability because of all these medications. And he's like, no, this has to stop. Something's wrong. Because I was having really horrific nightmares. Like I was screaming in my sleep. I'd wake up drenched in sweat. I'd attack you if you tried to wake me up, and so it was just something was wrong.
trauma response. That's a
Yeah,
that's a typical that's a typical side effect of trauma.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the first thing, looking back on it now, the first thing that I realized that launched my healing was to get off the medications. The medications were not doing me any good. And that was a long process that it wasn't easy. It was not easy. When I came through that, I realized, okay, I am better. I'm more stable. I'm not having the physical symptoms, but I am still very depressed. I'm still having anxiety attacks all the time. Something's still wrong, but I ignored it. Ironically, my mother, because we were talking about our mothers in the last episode, my mother started meditating and it was helping her in many ways. And she kept saying, you should meditate, you should meditate. But to me, I was like, yeah, you're saying this is helping. And I see little bits where maybe, but I don't know. I don't really see it. I don't see that meditation's really done that much difference for you. So I'm not going there. So I resisted it for a long time. And then anger hit. I've always been really shy, really introverted, really quiet. I don't like to rock the boat. I'm, conflict and me, we don't get along. So I'm always like the peacemaker. So when anger hit, I did not have the tools to deal with it. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the feeling, the physical feeling that was happening. And it was, you never knew what was going to trigger me. I never knew what was going to trigger me. It could be one little thing and I just blew up, and it was vile. I mean, it was not me.
Yeah.
I'd get verbally abusive. My husband bore the brunt of it more often than not. And I would want to flee. I would want to flee him. I'd want to flee me. I'd want to flee everything. And he would try and restrain me because I could get physical, and it got really ugly. And that's when I finally said, I knew that I had to do something. I had to do something. And I was not going back on medications because medications had not worked for me. So I tried meditation. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to help or anything, but I thought, it's not going to hurt. And so I tried meditation, and that's, I've talked about it in my book and I've talked about it on Substack, but for those who don't know anything about me, when I started meditation, I started with guided visual meditations, and I couldn't see anything that they were talking about, which led me to aphantasia, to discover aphantasia, which frustrated me. And I thought, okay, I can't meditate. So that tool for healing is out for me. But something kept saying, no, give it another try. There's more to it than you're seeing. That's funny. So I gave it another try, and I found what worked for me. And I started realizing that I was starting to remain calm in moments where would usually set me into an anxiety panic attack or trigger my anger. So meditation for me was the key. It was the doorway in. It was the beginning. And it wasn't all I had to. From there, I started, doing shadow work, inner child work. I started a morning gratitude practice, which I think I'm 7 years into, and I haven't missed a morning since.
Awesome.
I realized how toxic my mind was. Everything I was telling myself inside my head, whether it was about me, my people around me, the world around me, my environment, everything was toxic. Everything was negative. There was no positivity in there at all.
Yeah.
And when I started that gratitude practice, I told myself, okay, you're going to name 1 to 3 things. I started at night, actually, every night that you could find to be grateful about this day. And sometimes that was literally, I'm grateful this day is over. That was it.
Hey, that's something. Right.
But the more I practiced that, the more I realized that I was starting to pay attention to the good things rather than just focusing on the bad things. And that's when I really started thinking, wait a minute, I'm doing a lot of this to myself now, because that's all I tell myself is the negative. And when I started catching that and my son recently asked me, well, how did you do that? How did you, when you're just so like pissed off at somebody, or you're just like, judging them or whatever? I'm like, well, when I catch myself, because I didn't always in the beginning,
Mhm.
it's going to sound weird, but I told him, I said, I would say, stop, stop, stop in my head. And then I would replace that negative thought about myself or the world, or whatever, with one positive thought.
Something good. Yeah.
It's something simple. And,
Yeah.
so it just it was these baby steps for me. It was these little things that I started to implement. The gratitude, forgiveness came next. That was a huge one, a really hard one, because I never thought I'd be a forgiving person. I held on to grudges so
Yeah.
much.
I think forgiveness didn't come till later for me.
I
I still had a lot to work through, but yeah.
think the reason it came for me when it did is that my aunt was dying, and my aunt,
Oh,
when
yeah.
my mother had all of her kids taken away and I became a ward of the state, I was placed with my aunt. I lived with her for a year, and she was very abusive, physically,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally. She was incredibly abusive. And so that's what ultimately put me in foster home. So
Yeah.
I didn't with her for years.
Yeah.
And I hated her for years, She was evil, horrible. But she was dying. And my mom, who had her own issues with her as well, this is my mom's sister, um, found herself being the one to take care of my aunt, which we were like, wow, I never thought that would happen, because my mom had her own hatred of my aunt,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And we got to talking, and she was like, your aunt Louie, her name was Louie. Louie and I have talked a lot, and I've been able to let go of that. We've come to a place where we forgive each other and everything. And I was like, forgave her. And that just like, it's like, how could my mom forgive her? I mean, knowing what my mom had gone through. So I thought, can I forgive her? She's dying. If I'm going to forgive her, it's got to be now, And I just thought about that. I made the choice to forgive her. I decided I was done carrying all that anger and all that pain, and it wasn't doing me any good. I was thinking she probably didn't even realize I had this anger.
Mhm.
And so I decided I was going to forgive her. And I was like, well, I'm going to call her, and we'll have a talk, and I'm going to tell her what she did and why, and I did. And she just bust out crying. And she's like, Andrea, I thought I'd ruined you for life. She's like, I have tormented myself all these years because I know that I was horrible to and I
Oh,
started crying, and I was like, and she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so
that was
sorry.
a healing moment for
And
you.
that was healing.
That was a
And
very healing moment for you.
that
Yeah.
was healing. And so it wasn't just
Sure.
the choice to forgive her, but the fact that she said she was sorry, the fact that she acknowledged that she knew that, and that she had been holding on to that pain too, that broke something open in me. And I was like, I let that go. And I ended up going to visit her a couple of times. And, before she died, we hugged. I said, I love you, that sort of thing. And so I
Mm,
carried that with me for a while. She was the first person I forgave, and I carried that with me, and how light that made me feel. And I
yeah.
was like, there's something to this. And so I went to the next one on my list, if you will. It that worked for a while until I got to self-forgiveness. That one was a lot harder.
That one is harder. I went through the same thing as far as where it was easier for me to let go and of those anger feelings and the hurt and the resentment and all of that. It was easier to forgive other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably how it is for a lot of people is we are our own worst enemies. We beat ourselves up. We expect perfection when it's not possible because nobody is perfect.
Mhm.
It's yeah. Gosh, our stories are so similar. I did a lot of the things that you did as well. I didn't start with meditating. I started with the gratitude. Because I remember when I was in my 30s, I was in and out of AA a lot. I had at one point even gotten 2 years sober. And they stressed like different sponsors that I'd had would have me do a gratitude list at night. In the morning you pray, and at night you thank God. You that's when you express your gratitude. Well, because of I also came into different spirituality.
Mhm.
That was something, yeah, I'll get into that in a little bit, but the gratitude, I started doing it in the morning instead because I realized for me, it helped me to kind of set the mood for the day. Or,
Exactly.
yes. So
I talk about that in my book. 'Cause I
yeah,
eventually switched to morning because I was like, well, start your day off right.
yeah, start on the right side of the bed, not
Yeah.
not the wrong side of the bed. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, and I did a 30-day gratitude journal when I was in treatment. That was something I started, and tried to come up with 3 different things every day that I was grateful for. Towards the end there, it was getting a little tough, but it makes you think about the good things that we do have and the things we take for granted,
Yes.
you know? Just having a roof over your head, having a bed to sleep in, having food to eat. Um, those I think us, living in a not third world type of country, who we take those things for granted. Um, and I don't know, I've become, I think it has helped change my whole perspective on life and my mindset, and it's made it into more of a positive type of mindset where I'm looking for the good instead of looking out for the negative. Like you have mentioned, I was very much a negative person. Everything happened to me. Everything was about the bad that happened to me. I never acknowledged what I had, the good that I did have. So I think we have a lot of that in common.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
mentioned part of yours was with your spiritual awakening. And I should
Mhm.
say that that was a huge turning point for me as well
Mhm.
when I finally embraced it because I started after Ed died. I I think that I started to, but I shut it away. I wasn't ready and I closed
Yeah.
that part off and I turned away. And so it was several years later that I had my real spiritual awakening.
Mhm.
At that time, I was like, okay, this feels right and I'm ready for it and I'm not turning away again. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I tried so hard to fit into that box of the typical God, your organized religion God and your Christian God. And I couldn't make that fit for me.
Yeah.
And I still to this day I do not choose to follow any organized religion. If I was gonna associate with anything organized religion wise, it'd probably be Buddha or something, Buddhist or something,
I knew you were going to say that because you're just like me. I feel the same way.
where it's very peace oriented and respectful and love and, very meditative. Another thing that I had gotten into is Tai Chi, which is, you know, a form of martial arts that's very slow movement and mindfulness and kind of meditative all at once, and with incorporating that in movement. Um,
I
that was good.
Qigong.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, Nature was very healing for me. Gosh, I was in, well, I told you a little bit about Maui when I was there. That was before I went to treatment because it was like I started having my spiritual awakening there. And then I came home and it was like back to reality. And it was, it was hard because I couldn't express, at the time, I couldn't express what that experience was for me because my family was so upset and so mad at me that I had a hard time expressing that it was actually a good experience for me, because how dare I go off and have a good time while they're worried sick about me type of situation, because I had left with the intention of going for like a week and a half and didn't come home until for like, I didn't even want to come home at all. I wanted to stay, but my mom and my neighbor, my best friend at the time, begged me to stay or to come back, to come home, to come home. Um, you know, And then I was finally convinced when I was told that my cat wasn't doing well and missed me and wasn't hardly eating. And so I decided to come home. Um, yeah, but that's where a lot of that started for me was, it was as if the ocean spoke to me, and I walked barefoot so much while I was there. I mean, part of the time was because I lost my shoes. So, just walking barefoot, there is something to be said about, I love walking in my yard barefoot after I've mowed, when it's fresh cut grass. Um, I really connect with nature.
Yes.
And when I was in treatment and at the transitional living, it was in a small town and I walked everywhere. I walked everywhere. So I think a combination of that, the exercise with intentional movement, um, the meditation, the gratitude. I got into doing some deep breathing exercises, things like that, which really helped to start to calm my nervous system. So yeah, I was trying to think of what else did I do for nervous system regulation. Also just telling myself and out loud, telling myself, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm
Yeah.
safe.
That's
So, so hearing it, saying it out loud. So you're speaking it, you're hearing it. When you get your senses involved like that, I think it makes it more real and gets into your subconscious and into your conscious better, uh, where it will stay. But it has to be repetitive. My therapist, when I was in treatment, had me write down different affirmations every day. I had stickies all over my headboard and in the mirror in the bathroom and all kinds of, because my self-esteem was so poor. I didn't like myself. I didn't love myself. And so I think that was probably honestly the biggest thing I got out of treatment was learning self-love, self-respect, self-worth, and then from there, learning boundaries, all of the things that, we do to respect our authentic self, come into our authentic self. I was such a people pleaser.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So all the mantras, the affirmations, right. There is something to be said about physically writing them down. Because like I said, you get your senses involved, reading them in your head and then also reading them out loud. So you're getting, your touch, your feel, your hearing senses, your reading senses, your sight, putting all of that together. The more you incorporate all of that, um, the more real then it will become for you, your affirmations and mantras.
Yeah, I did a lot of that as well.
Yeah, a lot of
I,
journaling
you're
too.
right. Just speaking it out loud is, and that was not easy for me either. Because,
Mhm.
like I said, for one, I'm always been kind of quiet and timid and everything anyway. But when you don't love yourself and you're trying to listen to your own voice, say something positive about you, you want to like recoil, and
Mhm.
it was hard. It was something that I had to really stick with and
Yeah.
continue to do until it started to feel natural.
And then all of a sudden, yeah, I remember it feeling really weird and stupid at first, like this is dumb. Yeah.
Yep.
You're like, keep
There
doing
too.
it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And the repetitiveness of it staying consistent is really important. Um, because if just doing something a few times and then kind of letting it go, that's not going to stick.
Yeah.
So the repetitiveness of it was really important.
I remember I remember even noticing when it was starting to stick because I found myself when I was listing my reasons to be grateful, I found myself listing things about myself that I was grateful for, things that I had done. And then I was like, wait a minute, wait, who is this person?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember getting there too. And, it's just so different. Think back about the miserable, shell of a soul I was
Mhm.
and how negative I was and just all those things. And it's like I'm a, like the Phoenix, rise of the Phoenix. I've been reborn. I refer to that as my old life.
Yeah.
I turned 50 um
Yeah. Happy
tomorrow,
birthday.
tomorrow,
Happy
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
Yay.
yeah, thank
I
you.
know. My
I feel
50th
like I'm a
birthday.
half century old and I feel like I'm just being reborn into
Yeah.
a new life. And,
I know.
I
I
feel
remember when I turned 50, because there are people around me, are you okay? You're turning 50. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, I feel the healthiest I've ever felt,
Mhm.
the best I've ever felt. I actually enjoy life now. I enjoy
Yeah.
life. So yeah, I'm good with turning 50.
Yeah, I remember turning 30 and taking that really hard. 40 wasn't quite as hard, but yeah, it's like, I'm physically feel better, after I got healthier. I lost a lot of weight. I used to take a lot of blood pressure medicine. I don't take any blood pressure medicine anymore. And something about decompressing the mind of all of that stress and anxiety that lives within us, that does affect your body.
It
It
really
affects your body. It creates these sick systems within us. Um, I got off my blood pressure medicine. I'm still in the process. My doctor is doing it so slow. He's irritating me. Some of my psych meds. I've weaned off two of them. But I'm weaning down. I don't want to go through the withdrawals of those because he's basically told me that it can be hard.
And that's what I
Um,
did. I just
mhm,
quit.
quit taking them all together. Yeah.
I did.
I don't know if that's the best way to do it. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not gonna give any kind of recommendations on that.
I had a really bad doctor at the time. She was the one who, I mean, literally, I would go into the office and say, okay, well, this is what's happening now. And she would look in her little book, go through all the medications I already was taking and say, okay, well, you can take this one too.
Just add to it instead of
to it. No treatment really. No getting to the root of the issue.
yeah. Well, that's what modern
So
is about.
So I didn't go to her to be weaned off of it or anything. I was just like, no, I'm done. Throw them away. I had no idea it was going to be so hard.
Yeah.
I have a good doctor now. And when I told her that, she's like, ooh, you definitely took the hard route.
Hard route. Yeah. Yeah. I am kind of irritated though, because I was supposed to be started a lower dose. I do a long acting injection that lasts 4 weeks because when I was homeless here, after I got back from Hawaii, I was homeless here for a little bit. One of the times I was hospitalized, they basically wouldn't release me because they knew I would leave and then just quit taking my medicine again.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't let me leave until I agreed to do this long acting injection. And it was something that is an antipsychotic. And my doctor, the last time I went in just a couple weeks ago to get my injection, they were supposed to lower the dose of it and they didn't. So me and my doctor are going to have words. He recognizes that I'm good, I'm stable. He's hesitant, and I'm not quite 100% sure on how I want to deal with that yet. I don't know, because I recognize it is a lot of the medications. What they do is they help you to suppress those feelings.
Yeah. I think
And
it's a really hard one though, because everybody's different, and some
Mhm.
people they absolutely need those medications.
Right.
Um,
But if I'm going to be on anything, I want it to be the lowest
yeah,
dose
yeah.
necessary.
No, and I'm not saying that
Yeah.
you need to be. I'm just saying that it's so hard. I mean, as a doctor, that
Yeah.
has to be difficult. It's like, well, does this one really need it, or do they need something more spiritual or
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
therapy as opposed to a medication? And it's that
Mhm.
fine line. It's hard.
Yeah. And I do recognize that I'm still I had this conversation with another coach that I've been kind of befriended. We've talked a few times. I recognize that in my own healing, I am, I'm not going to say I'm healed. I'm better. I am tons better. But I think it's a lifelong journey, you know, because I will still occasionally have feelings about things that have happened. Not the big explosive feelings, but if anything, maybe feel a little sad or a little upset once in a while because it's like, you know, I'm not over it. Maybe. Maybe it's not that I'm not over it, but maybe it's that it's just, I know I need more work to have more conversations with certain family members of mine.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of where I don't feel like I have the closure yet.
Well,
Because,
that's important. That is so important.
yeah, yeah. And so I know that's going to be, things I need to do and have these conversations with some people in my family um, to be able to get some closure, because when you have certain people who have told you this in the past and other people have told you this in the past, it's like, who do I believe?
Mhm.
As far as things that had happened when I was around 3, you know, and I feel like they had all, were more worried about protecting my mother than me when
Mhm.
the news with my stepdad came out. So, yeah, I know it's going to be important for me to continue in my healing process to have these hard conversations that I don't want to have, but I know are necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is it's hard
Oh,
work.
it
Healing,
is. It is.
healing that is hard work. It is messy. It's not pretty. It's not fun to do because it is easy to do.
Ongoing. It's
Mhm.
ongoing. I don't think we ever get to the point where we can say, "Oh, I've got my healing all nicely packaged up, put a little bow on it, and I'm done." Because
Yeah.
there's constantly things coming up for me. I mean, I wrote the healing spiral on Substack, and I talk about that, about how each time you come around, though, the more you heal, the lesser it is. It feels
Stronger. Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
through this time. But
Yeah.
I'm writing this article about it for Friday, actually. I realized I was struggling with a personal relationship, somebody that I love a great deal.
Mhm.
They've been in my life for years and years. But I found that I was getting very irritated with them all the time. I was, really struggling with them. And it hit me that because I was not always truthful for so long, I wouldn't
Mhm.
hide how I felt. If they said something that hurt me, I would just hold it in internally and I wouldn't say, "Hey, wait a minute, why are you saying that?" I started building up all these resentments. So just
Mhm.
like I poisoned my own self against myself, I was poisoning myself with them too.
Right.
I and that's part of healing is that I've
Mhm.
recognized that and now I'm trying to reverse the damage.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Just recognizing that you're doing that is a good step. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Yeah, that's huge. That's like me realizing, I need to have these hard conversations because I know that's where some of my own sadness and insecurities and, all the things, and the thing is those feelings that come up, they're not nearly as intense as they used to be.
yeah,
And it doesn't come out. I'm allowing myself to feel as things come up. It doesn't come out as anxiety and it doesn't come out as obsessive behaviors or, unhealthy behaviors like it used to because I was trying to keep it bottled in. I didn't want to feel.
yeah,
So that's how it comes out then when we're keeping all that feeling trapped inside of us. So I allow myself to feel and it's not as intense as it was in the beginning. It's
mhm,
and I can give myself a little time with it and then I move on. Where before I would get stuck in those feelings and then unable to shut them off.
yeah, yeah.
And
I think
become
that's what
unstable.
anger gave me. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for my anger now
Yeah.
because it did wake me up. Nothing else
Mhm.
was working. That's what woke me up. And I think it gave me, it helped me realize that I can't keep everything bottled up and that the reason it's a pressure valve, something had to release. And that's where the anger came from.
Yeah.
So I am grateful for it now. It
Yeah.
sucked going through it. It really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow. Hmm. If there is, I think we might go ahead and wrap it up here soon. But if there is one piece of advice you can give our listeners who maybe is struggling with some of their own healing or substance issues or any kind of destructive behavior where they're not living in their own authentic self, what is the most important piece that you think they need to hear?
That's a really good question. And I think it really boils down to you can't compare your healing to anyone else's, for one. And you can't expect it to be a straight line. There is no, you do this step, and you're done. It's not. You know, you or I we could hand over somebody, okay, here's the steps we took. But guess what? Even that wasn't linear. We kept having to come back to them. And it really is. It's like you coming back to it. And every time you think, oh, you know, well, today I really screwed up and I failed myself. I'm terrible at healing. It's never going to work. Don't tell yourself that.
Yeah.
You had a slip, whatever. There's tomorrow, there's the next moment. There's, this moment's really the only moment that matters anyway.
Yeah.
The past is done, the future isn't there, just concentrate on this moment and get through each next moment one at a time. I mean, it sounds so cliche and so simple, but once you're really practicing it, you really start to get that. You really start to understand that, yeah, it's true. When I'm living in the past, I'm miserable, I'm depressed, I'm sad. If I'm living in the future, I'm anxious, I'm scared,
That's why I stress mindfulness activities. It helps to keep you present. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're, simple things, brushing your teeth while you're eating. Think about what you're doing. Use your senses to describe what you're doing or how you feel or what's kind of going on. And that is one way to help ground yourself as well. And mindfulness activities is good for the nervous system as well. Helps to keep it present.
Really quick, I'm watching this show. I had no idea what it was going to be about. It was dark comedy, right? It's Murder Mindfully. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Mindful parts of it, the exercises that they're teaching this guy, I'm like, yeah, that actually does work. Not to go out and kill somebody.
Right. That's funny. That's funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, on that note, well, Andrea, I just wanted to say thank you for coming back for another session with me, and not another session, another episode with me. On season 1, episode 6, part 2. Should I call it 6, part 2? Yeah. Episode 6, part 2. Episode 6-2, I think is what I'll do it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just going to end with a little bit of notes here. If anything or something in this episode resonated with you, that's not by accident, and your story isn't over. And no matter where you are right now, you are still capable of rising. If you're ready to go deeper, you can come join me on Substack at riseofthephoenixcoach.substack.com. This is where I share more of my story, my tools, and real-time insights. And if you're looking to work together, you can visit my website at riseofthephoenixcoach.com to learn more about Rise of the Phoenix Coach with one-on-one coaching. And here we will rebuild confidence, reignite inner strength, and rise up to a life of peace, love, and true happiness. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. That's how this movement can grow, as one story, one voice, one rise at a time. And until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, and keep rising. Bye, everyone.